Abhishek, I have completed. Sorry, I was talking
Yes.
on mute.
Yeah. Sorry.
This is Shiva. I have completed the homework.
You
Sorry,
have
I
made the
was.
subscription already?
Yeah.
Have you made the subscription already? Okay, fine. So are you okay to share your subscription with others in the group? Or like you want? Okay, fine. So what I will do now, I will show you the process how a subscription can be shared among others. That is what I will show, and also I will try to explain it. And first of all, let's do the revision. And then what I will do, I will show you how you can share the subscription with others. And then we will jump upon Data Factory and we will study Data Factory. That is what we will do. Okay. So, yeah, so in the previous class, we basically understood what are the different roles of a data engineer. So data engineer role is to do extract, transform, and load, extraction of the data, transformation of the data, and then loading part. So basically for the extraction, you can use Data Factory. For transformation, it is very important to learn either one of the language, SQL or Python. So start with SQL. That is why we have installed, like I have shown you the process to install a MS SQL Server on premise on your computer, and in which you can practice SQL. And then there is a loading part. Loading means load it to Power BI, load it to anywhere particular person wants to do any kind of descriptive analytics or predictive analytics, right? So that is what we have seen. And then we came and understood what is cloud computing. So cloud computing is nothing but you are not accessing your computer, you are accessing someone else's computer on pay as you go model and on demand. Okay, that is what is cloud computing. Then there is two model: deployment model and service model. Deployment model is public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. Service model is IaaS, SaaS, and PaaS. So public cloud is you are not, yeah, so you are just going to the Microsoft asking for a cloud access and then you are getting a particular data center. Private cloud is Microsoft is coming to your premise, setting up a whole setup for you. Hybrid cloud is mix of both. IaaS, SaaS, and PaaS: infrastructure service, software as a service, platform as a service. If you're just getting a machine in which you can go, like just a machine, that is IaaS. If you are getting something in which you go and code, that is PaaS. SaaS is pre-built software. Okay. All of this we have understood. Then we made a subscription, we made a resource group, we made resources under it. Okay, very important resource which we have made is storage account. That is what we have made, very very important from the interview perspective as well. What are storage accounts? The storage account has four types. Either you choose to create a blob storage or data lake gen 2. There is a file service, queue service, and table service. Okay, either you choose to create a blob service, file service, queue service, and table service. File service is to share large file. Table service, queue service is to handle messages. Table service is to handle NoSQL databases. Okay, so these are the four things are there. And any one of you wanted to describe, like can describe what is the difference between a blob service and data lake gen 2? Very important from the interview perspective. Anybody can answer this question. What is the difference between data lake gen 2 and blob service?
Hierarchical structure.
Yes. And
What was that question? I'm sorry.
what is the difference between a data lake gen 2 and a blob storage?
So in blob storage, we cannot create a folders.
Hmm.
We cannot. There is some ACL control that we can manage in data lake gen 2, but not in blob storage. And blob storage is older version compared to the data lake gen 2.
Yeah. Okay, so your answer is right, but not totally proper. So suppose in blob storage, if I open blob storage, here there's a container. Inside that we have, here you are not getting any option to create a directory. In the data lake gen 2, you will get an option to create a directory. You shouldn't say subfolder because you can create a dummy folder anyways in the blob storage from Data Factory. That is possible, which I will show you going forward. But Your answer should be, I cannot create a directory, and also you cannot manage ACL, access control list. And
Okay.
blob storage is the older version, data lake Gen 2 is a newer version. So yeah, so that should be answer. Very, very important from the interview perspective. So please remember it. Now we created data factory, and then we will do this part right now. So this is the architecture which we are targeting, right? This is the architecture which we are targeting. Which architecture? This architecture, in which we will understand how to move the data using data factory from on-premise server to the blob storage, right? So on-premise server can be your computer, and in your computer you already installed MS SQL or MySQL, any SQL server you can install. Or if you don't install it as well, you can move the data from your C drive, D drive using, like, we will understand basically how to move the data from here to here using data factory. So to move the data from this place to this place using data factory needs connection to this, data factory needs connection to this, so that data factory can move the data from here to here. Simple, right? Similar to if you want to move your luggage from point A to point B, from point A to point B, you need particular taxi driver to, you need to give the taxi driver an address, right? This is the address of point A, this is the address of point B. Now you go pick up from point A and move the luggage to point B, right? So you need to do that, right? So data factory needs the address of this, data factory also needs the address of this, so that data factory can move the data from here to here. That is what we need first of all, right? So what we will do, we will understand the process, how basically it can be done, how data factory can reach to point A and also data factory can reach to point B, and then basically move the data. Okay. And this topic is also very, very important and very favorite for interviewers. It is basically, yeah. So here if I go, yeah. So very important from the interview perspective, what is integration runtime and what is link service? Very important. I will show you, first of all, let me open data factory and then I will show you where. Yeah, basically we want to move the data from this place to this place using data factory. Tushar, I'm muting yourself because it's my sound is echoing. Okay, fine. Siva, Suresh, Natos. Okay. Okay, fine. So we need to move the data from this place to this place using data factory, right? So data factory needs the connection to this, and also data factory needs connection to this. And what is this? This is source A. For example, this is source A, for example, right? Source A and source B. Source A to source B using ADF. Using ADF. Now here in our architecture over here, it is basically a on-premise server to cloud server, right? On-premise server to cloud server. But I am explaining you right now how to move the data from point A to point B. Always and always, it is not necessary that you will do on-premise server to cloud. You can move the data from cloud to cloud as well. Suppose my company has data in Amazon S3 bucket, for example, and now my company don't want the data in Amazon system. They want the data in Azure system. So they can move the data from a cloud to cloud as well. That is also possible. Now, suppose my company wants to move the data from the cloud server because they have started using cloud and now they feel that cloud is not good, right? So because due to some reason, they feel that now I want to move the data to on-premise server again. Then you can move the data from on-premise server from point A like from cloud to on-premise server. It's not like you will always and always move the data from on-premise server to cloud. You can move the data from cloud to on-premise, on-premise to on-premise, on-premise to cloud, cloud to on-premise. Anything is possible. Okay. So suppose, yeah, so suppose this is on-premise and this is right now it's cloud, but it can be anything. It can be anything. Cloud to cloud, on-premise to on-premise, and data factory can be used for any operation which I have told you, right? On-premise to cloud, cloud to on-premise, and then cloud to cloud, on-premise to on-premise. Any permutation and combination is possible to do from data factory, right? Now, to achieve this, we need basically two things. What are the things we need? We need integration runtime and we need link service. Okay, integration runtime and link service. What is integration runtime and link service? Let's understand that. So integration runtime has three types. One is Azure default integration runtime. Second is self-hosted integration runtime. Third is SSIS, Azure default integration runtime, self-hosted integration runtime, and SSIS. There are three types of integration runtime. Okay. What is Azure default integration runtime? Whenever you want to move the data to cloud or from cloud, okay, if your source is cloud, okay, no matter the cloud is Amazon, no matter the cloud is GCP, no matter cloud is anything, it is cloud. Okay. So this integration runtime will be used in that case. Azure's default integration runtime. Azure self-hosted integration runtime will be used whenever you want to move the data from or into any of the on-premise server, which is not cloud. What is on-premise? Which is not cloud, right? Simple. My computer, your computer, any computer, any server which is not in the cloud, it is a self-hosted integration runtime will be used in that case. What is SSIS? We use this integration runtime to import SSIS packages. Okay. To import SSIS packages. What is SSIS packages? A package previously Microsoft has another service which is SSIS. To import SSIS package, we use this integration runtime. As simple as that, right? So there are three types of integration runtime, and basically we will use this integration runtime. And why this Azure's default integration runtime is being called as a default integration runtime? Because this integration runtime you don't need to create. Once you create your space, this integration runtime will be already here. You don't need to basically create it. Okay, it's already there. This auto resolved integration runtime or self-hosted as your default integration runtime is same. Okay, so this integration runtime we don't need to create, and this integration runtime will be used to connect with any of the cloud service. Okay, any of the cloud service. What is this integration runtime? Self-hosted integration runtime. This integration runtime we will use to connect with any of the on-premise servers. On-premise service. So suppose this is on-premise, right? I want to connect to this on-premise service. So for that, what I will do, I will install a software here. I will install a software here, and then data factory will basically communicate with this software. In case of cloud, you don't need to do it. In case of cloud, you can directly connect using auto resolve integration runtime. But in case of on-premise service, you need to install a software in your source, and then data factory will basically communicate with this particular software and then pull the data for you. So this particular software is being called as a self-hosted integration runtime, and then we will see how to install it. So here you can go new, you can click self-hosted, you can click continue, you can click self-hosted, you can click continue, and then click continue, and then install this software. This is like a normal link which can be used, right? So it's not like generated when I click over it. It's a general link. So for example, if Sudesna says that Abhishek, I want to move, can you help me understand how you can pull the data from my computer into your data lake? So in that case, Sudesna needs to install the software in her computer so that I can pull the data from her computer, right? So this particular software needs to be installed in the server in the server from which we are pulling the data for, right? So this software will install. Okay, click download, and then once we need to download this software basically, right? Self-hosted integration runtime Microsoft. Yeah, so what we are doing, we are installing an integration runtime in a corporate firewall, and data factory will communicate with this particular data factory, will communicate with this integration runtime and pull the data from on-premise source. Okay, this is how data factory will do. So we completed this process in which we basically clicked new, we go back to the self-hosted, we basically download the integration runtime and then authenticate with a key. Okay, whatever. So once you run the installer, like this installer, what I was trying to download, we will basically authenticate it using this key. Using this key, we will authenticate that installer. So yeah, so basically, yeah, self-hosted, and then this is the key. Then this particular software which we have downloaded in our computer, once you run the installer, this window will come. You need to copy the key, this key, and paste it over there and run it, register it, okay? And then your integration runtime will be running. Your integration runtime will be running. So once you close this, right? So here, suppose this integration runtime is not running, but once you do that particular process, this will be running. Okay, why I am not doing it? Because I have done it multiple times. My computer hangs whenever I do it. So try to do it. It's very easy. Run the installer, get the key, paste it over there, authenticate. Okay, then this status will be running. Yes.
Abhishek, I have a question here.
Yeah.
So, when I think about real-time project, we have on-premises in one server and all the team members will use it, right?
Yes.
From one system. So, in original system where the like per se any SQL server is there, in that system we have to install this and give the key.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
No need to do for all the project members,
No. So
right?
suppose
Yeah.
if you have,
Okay.
it is server wise. So suppose like if you're in your company, you are using 2 servers, 3 servers,
Mm-hmm.
then in that
Mm-hmm.
case, in every server you need to install it.
No, we have to do
But
this.
if you're using one server only, then in that case, you need to install in that server only. That's all.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So what we will do, we will install in this server and then we will basically authenticate it and then ADF can pull the data. Now, yes. Yeah. Any other question, guys? Okay, I am muting you, Tushar. Again, Tushar, do you have any question? Okay, let's proceed. So
It
now,
is
yeah,
hello. I'm having a question.
yeah.
It seems like is project oriented. Those who are freshers,
Mm.
since I'm not able to interconnect.
Interconnect as in what you are not able to connect.
Means I thought you are explaining only project ways. If no one have an idea about the Azure data engineering and all that things, so
Have you went through the first class recording, Tushar?
yes.
Okay, so in the first class, I have explained what is cloud computing, what is data engineering in
I
general.
that understood. But
Yeah.
whatever the flow you are going now, I'm thinking it's related to the project oriented.
So,
Is the
so
reason.
yeah, so the whole training is project oriented itself. So suppose we will do the projects, right? So this projects we will do, and that is what is required whenever you are approaching an interview or whenever you are approaching any
Not a
project in your
problem.
company, right?
That is not a problem. But suppose anyone don't have any idea about the basic things and all that things, then what is the benefit of project?
Okay,
First,
like your question is completely different. So I feel you are more inclined towards how the training is being provided. So
Ah,
you can just connect me after the
okay,
after
okay,
the, let's not
okay,
discuss it over here. Okay.
okay.
Okay, fine. So yeah, so basically let's yeah, so what we are discussing right now, we are discussing about integration runtime and link service. Okay. So here what we will do, we will install an integration runtime in this particular server, a source A, we will install integration runtime in that server, and then ADF will connect with that server. Now Sudeshna asked that suppose Abhishek, in my company I have one server, I need to install this integration runtime in that server, and then ADF will connect with this server. Now the second question can be, suppose in that particular same server we have multiple data sources, right? So I have suppose MySQL, I have suppose MS SQL, right? MS SQL. Now this particular integration runtime needs to communicate with MySQL, and also this integration runtime needs to communicate with MS SQL as well, right? So in that case, I still haven't given any password of my MySQL and MS SQL, right? So till now, just my data factory is able to connect with this integration runtime. That's all. But this integration runtime also needs to connect with MS SQL or MySQL, right? So that basically we can pull the data. For example, if you are moving your luggage from point A to point B, you will give the address, but at the same time, you will also mention that which person is responsible for that luggage, so that you can call them or you can reach out to them. So here we just connected with the integration runtime. Now that integration runtime needs to connect with your source as well, in which your data is there, MS SQL, MySQL. Okay, so for that, link service will come into the picture. Okay. So here what we will do, we will go over here, we will go to the link service, we'll open the link service. And then here, suppose whatever data source you are dealing with, suppose you are dealing with MySQL, you want to pull the data from MySQL. So you will select MySQL, you will click continue. Here you will mention the integration runtime which you have installed, and then you'll mention server name, database name, username and password, and then you will test the connection, right? This is how you will do it. Similarly for the blob storage as well, suppose if I go over here, I will type data lake gen 2. And then here, as we understood that in case of a cloud storage, we will use auto resolve integration runtime. We will select our storage account name, test connection. Connection successful, we can create it. And then this is a one-time process. Once for a source data in data factory, if you created a connection, then you don't need to do it every time. It's a one-time process. So once the connection is set up, then it's all okay. You don't need to do it every time, though you can do it, but not required. Okay, so once I created a link service, for any of my source, I can use that link to pull the data from that source or to send the data to that source, right? So it's basically you can do any sort of operation. So yeah, so basically from the on-premise server, it's like the answer is very simple. And what we will do, how we will approach it in that, so in case of on-premise server, we'll install a self-hosted integration runtime in that particular server, and then we'll make a link to databases, MySQL, MS SQL, whatever database is there, we'll make a link to that, similar to the cloud. Okay, so we will use auto resolve integration runtime, then we'll create a link service. Now, very like in the interview, people can ask you how basically you connected to a source, how you have pulled the data. So you can say that we have used integration runtime and link service. And in integration runtime, we basically use the self-hosted integration runtime in which we installed that integration runtime in that server. And then using link service, we are able to connect with to the databases. In the link service, we provided credential of that database so that integration runtime can reach to that particular database and then made a connection. Similarly, we have done it for the cloud as well, integration runtime link service. So whenever in Data Factory you want to work with any kind of source, you need to first think about integration runtime and link service. Okay. Any doubt on this, guys? Any confusion, any doubt?
No, it's clear.
I have one question. Link service means data connection, yes,
Yes.
what I understand.
Yes.
And if it's on premise, then we need to create one more. We need to install one software.
Mm.
I forgot this name.
Self-hosted integration runtime.
Self-hosted, yeah. Then we can connect with this.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. So now I will.
So,
read-
Abhishek, I have a small question here, Abhishek.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as we know, like, when we have data in on-premises data sources, we will use self-hosted runtime. What if you want to, bring the data from SharePoint, let's say, because the major organizations might have, having their CSV files or whatever the data
Mm.
in the SharePoint folder, let's say.
Mm.
So how do we bring the SharePoint data and we can
SharePoint data is a cloud data or a on-premise data? Can you tell me that?
on-premise?
SharePoint is a general, like one SharePoint is a cloud, right? So here we in the team SharePoint, you mean to say, right?
Yeah. So Team SharePoint are
Team
yes.
SharePoint is the data in the cloud, right? It's not on-premise, right?
Yeah, I mean sometimes it will be in cloud, but sometimes we access the data through URL, right? So web URLs.
So yeah, so if you access the data through URL, so suppose if you are able to share me a URL of your data, then that is uploaded in the cloud. That is why you are able to share the URL, right?
Yeah.
So your SharePoint data is the cloud database. So for that you will use auto resolve integration runtime, and for that as well we have a link service over here. If I go over here, if I type SharePoint online list, it is that is why it is written SharePoint online list.
Online.
So suppose if it is uploaded in the cloud, like generally SharePoint is there in the cloud. If you haven't synced it up, then it is on premise, right? So you need to sync it up, and once you sync it up, it's there in the SharePoint. So then you can use your auto resolve integration runtime, provide site URL, tenant, principal ID, principal key, and then test connection.
Yeah.
This is basically service principal. Okay. Yeah, so I will just try to create some examples now. So suppose this is a Raj computer, okay, Raj computer. And now what Siva has made a subscription, right? Siva has made a subscription and Siva has a ADF, Siva ADF, for example. And now suppose this is basically Siva has created a data lake Gen 2 as well, right? Now I have my computer as well over here, my computer, Abhishek's computer. And in Raj computer, Raj also installed a MS SQL, right? Over here, MS SQL. And what I have done, I basically installed MySQL over here, MySQL. Also, what I have done, I have some data in the C drive as well, in my C drive. Okay, in my C drive. So for C drive as well, we have a link service. So here you can use file system link service, okay, to access C drives. So now how to approach this? How basically now Siva got a task that, hey, Siva, you need to basically move the data from MS SQL, MySQL, and also C drive to your data lake from Raj computer and from my computer. Now how to approach this? Can you think about it for some time, and then one by one I will approach to everyone, and then please try to give some answers so that I can understand, or I will correct you, okay? So think about it for 2 minutes, and then we'll basically brainstorm on this, how basically it can be done. Okay. So think about your answer, and then I will call out the names one by one. You can give the answer after that. Okay.
Abhishek, can you come again about the question?
So my question is, suppose Siva has created this ADF, Siva has this data lake Gen 2, and now Siva wants to move the data from Raj computer. And in Raj computer, particularly, he wants to move data from MS SQL, which is present in Raj computer. Now I have my own computer, and also Siva got a task to basically move the data from MySQL and my C drive as well. And all of these three data sources, MS SQL of Raj computer, MySQL of my computer, C drive of my computer, all the data should land in Siva's data lake. Okay, that is the task. So for this, basically how many link service and how many integration runtime is required, and how to approach the complete case, that how basically will create integration runtime and link service. That is my question, how it can be done. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so Deshna, do you want to give the answer, like what you think is the correct answer?
Okay, I'm not sure, but as per my understanding, I'll let you know. First, for each system to connect, we need an integration service. So, for Raj computer and Abhishek's computer, two integration services. Those are on-premise integration services. That is the second one. I forgot the name. Okay, and one integration service for the Shiva's Data Lake Gen 2, which is the default integration service, the cloud one. And for linked services, for MS SQL 1, for Raj computer, yeah, self-hosted, right. And then coming to what was the next one? Linked service and
C drive and MySQL.
yeah, what is it called?
File system for C drive.
No. Apart from integration service, what is the other name? Sorry, I'm very bad at
Integration runtime and link service.
link service. So coming to link service, for Raj computer, one link service for MS SQL. For Abhishek computer, we need two link services for MS SQL and C drive, and one link service for Shiva's Data Lake Gen 2.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
This is
So
what my
anybody has
understanding.
a different opinion? What Sudeshna has given the answer. Anybody has a different opinion?
No, Abhishek.
No,
Okay, yeah.
it's
So
correct.
the answer is perfectly correct. Good, Sudeshna, I guess you have understood it very correctly. So self-hosted, now what we will do, what Siva will do first of all, right? So what Siva will do, Siva will contact Raj. Hey, yes. Anybody has a question? Yes. Anybody has a question? Okay. Okay, fine. So what Shiva will do, Shiva will basically install the self-hosted integration runtime. Shiva will say, Raj, hey Raj, can you please install the self-hosted integration runtime? And then basically he will give this authentication key, which we were looking into, right? So he will just give the key, okay? And he will authenticate. Once Raj authenticate the key, Shiva ADF will be able to interact with this self-hosted integration runtime if Raj has a active internet connection. Okay, so Raj should have an internet connection, then basically Shiva can access to Raj computer. Similarly, Shiva will contact me, I will install the integration runtime, and then Shiva will give me the key, I will authenticate. Then I'm giving a permission to Shiva to pick up any data from my server using the integration runtime, right? So this is the two process. This is the first two process which Shiva will complete. And then for this one, he will anyways use an auto-resolve integration runtime, right? Now, once he do that, he needs to make a link service. So he will make a link service for this. 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 In this link service, he will mention this self-hosted integration runtime, because this self-hosted integration runtime will only able to interact with this, right? Similarly for this and this. For that, I will also give Siva, Raj will give the credential of MS SQL, right? Whatever is credential, he will give it. Similarly, I will give from MySQL C drive. Then this self-hosted integration runtime will be able to interact with this. This will be able to interact with this. This will be able to interact with this. Then we will connect with this data lake gen 2 using auto resolve integration runtime and data lake gen 2 link service. So totally how many link services required? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 data source, 4 link service. Link service calculation is very simple. For how many link service is required, how many data sources are there, right? And how many integration runtime is required, how many servers are there. So 1 server, 2 server, 1 data lake server. Okay, so 3 server, 3 integration runtime. 1 for Raj computer, 1 for Abhishek computer, 1 for Siva's computer. That's all.
So Abhishek, like if you give link service, for example, to MS SQL, like will it access the whole database or
In the link service, you can mention which database you want to attach.
and we
So
can
suppose
also
in your server, you have 5 database, for example. Then you can basically say that which database you want to connect with that server. So suppose here,
yeah, we can give the database, but yeah, let's say only one object, for example, one table that we need to.
why you will connect with one table?
I
So
mean,
that,
like, what
yeah.
is it safe, like when it communicating with through link service and integration runtime from ADF to other environments? The
So
data
suppose,
privacy and all will be.
yeah. Suppose now you say that when it comes to safety, okay, so suppose you say that is it safe? Yeah, so basically the installing integration runtime, and then that integration runtime will be able to reach to all the data which in your database, right? That integration runtime can do that. But now when you say that, like, I don't want that, okay, I don't want basically to give all the details to my database. Okay, so in that case, what you can do? So suppose you don't want to give it, then you are giving your server name, your database name. Then you are giving a user credential as well. So in SQL, so suppose this is my SQL. Okay, this is my SQL, my computer SQL. Now I don't want you, CYU, to access all of my data in my database. So whatever user credential I'm giving you, so suppose I am giving you cloud SQL pool @1234 is my password. This is my basically username and password. So in the SQL, you can also give permission on a user level as well, that this user is allowed to read only access to this user. So this integration runtime will log into that particular server with that user only, right? So in that case, that user will be able to access only those tables in which you have given the permission.
So where we give this user while
So
creating link service?
no. That is up to you. Like that is, so suppose here you're giving username and password of your SQL server, right? So in the SQL server, you can put this permission as well on a user level. So this is not related to this. This you need to manage internally in your SQL server, in which you will mention that this user has a read-only access, write-only access, and all of that you can mention over there. But here you will just give the username and password, and this username you can internally in your SQL server you can define what sort of permission you want to give to this user.
Okay.
But generally you give all the access, and then suppose if you are looking for one specific data, two specific data, and then in the SQL server, you can just mention that this user has only two like access to two table only. In that case, you will not see all the data. You'll just see two tables.
Okay, I understand. So in the linked service, we specify the username, and the username we can restrict the permissions
Yeah, in the
accordingly.
SQL server. In the SQL server. So you can go and say that this user has only access to this server. In the SQL server, you can run some commands and then you can manage the user level permission over there. But that
Okay.
won't happen from here.
Okay, so we install the self-hosted integration runtime. We download and we provide the key, right? And that is applicable to each individual server. Like this self-hosted will be installed on, for example, Raj computer
Mm,
and Abhishek computer separately, right?
yes. Like because both are different servers, right?
And those two, the keys will be directly provided access
Mm,
to ADF.
yes, you're right. Yes.
Okay. Actually, I missed or I didn't understand about this auto resolve integration. What's the difference between self-hosted and auto resolve?
Auto resolve is being used to connect with the cloud database. Self-hosted is being used to connect with any of the on-premise database.
Okay, clear now. Thank you.
Any other doubt, guys? Anybody has any doubt? Very, very important topic. So please clarify all your doubt if you have any.
Is linked service is similar to linked server in SQL Server? SQL, we can communicate with the linked server with either Oracle or SQL or any other databases.
Can you please repeat your question once again?
I mean, is linked service in ADF for data engineering is similar to linked server in SQL Server?
Link the server in SQL. I haven't
Yes.
used it. So anybody has
Okay.
idea about this link server in SQL?
No,
And
Shif.
can
Basically, I
answer.
mean, if you know SSIS, the link service is exactly the connection manager which we use in SSIS.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the connection manager, we can find the different connections, right, to bring the data. I mean, the sources and the destination, right? So this is the same. Here we use the link services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Any other questions? Okay, fine. Let's move forward now. So this is about making the connection. Okay, once you make a connection, now suppose I made link service. Let me open the window in which I have multiple link service that I can use to perform operation, which you can see. Yeah, suppose I have this link service, right? One for this particular data lake. Okay, then I have this SQL link service. Okay, then I have this link service. I have multiple link service placed over here. Similarly, you can also create a link service for your on-premise MS SQL and also link service for data lake, right? Now, once you have a link service, now the second topic of discussion is how we can move the data. Okay, how we can move the data. That is basically second topic. So to approach that, I will go over here, and then for that we basically need to create pipelines. Okay, we need to basically create pipeline. Let's go over here. I will remove this. Yeah, so for that we need to create pipelines. So I will go to this window. what is pipeline? This is basically, I have designed 3 pipeline over here, which you can see. Okay, so this is the pipeline. These are different things, are activities. Okay, and then these are the data set. So these are the 3 integral part of designing a pipeline. Pipeline, data set, activity. Whenever you are designing a pipeline, you need to create data set and you need to use some sort of activity. Okay, let's understand what is data set, what is activity. Okay, and what is pipeline in general. That is what we'll understand now. So pipeline is basically overall agenda, overall task, what you want to perform. Okay, so over here, if I go, over here, we are basically moving the data from source to Power BI. So we are doing a copy from a on-premise server to Blob, then Blob to Synapse, and then Synapse to Power BI. Okay, so one copy, second copy, and then copy to Power BI. So one operation, second operation, third operation. That is what we are doing, right? So we need to basically design a pipeline, complete a pipeline for it, using multiple activity. Okay, using multiple activity. So for this pipeline, one copy, second copy, one Databricks notebook, multiple activities is required, right? So that is complete end-to-end agenda, what you want to fulfill, that is pipeline. What is activity? So suppose you want to copy the file, you want to run a stored procedure, you want to do some sort of activity to basically perform it, you need multiple activities, right? One copy, second copy, then a notebook to transform. So you need different operations. So that is activity. What is data set? Data set is a reference point of where your data is located. Okay, reference point of where your data is located. Till now, in the link service, you mentioned that you want to pick, like you want to take data from MS SQL, but you still haven't mentioned that from MS SQL, which data you want to pick in. Okay, so from MS SQL, I want to pull dbo.department. I want to pull dbo.employee. Those sort of things you haven't mentioned. So suppose Siva set up a permission in 10 table. Okay, so Siva said, Abhishek, you can pull only 10 table out of 100 table in my database. But I also need to mention among this 10 table, I need to pick this table, right? So that particular information will be maintained in data set. So if I open any of the data set, here I am here I am moving the data to delta.csv. If I'm open this, here I am taking this department.csv. If I open this, nothing is mentioned over here probably. Yeah, so for any data set, you will always mention which data you want to pick in. Okay, which data you want to pick in. So here I am mentioning dbo.watermark from sync database. So in data set, you will mention what sort of data you want to pick and where you want to dump. That is what you will mention over there. So let's create a simple pipeline, simple copy data pipeline, in which I will move the data from input container to output container. Very simple operation we'll do. So I will open storage account. I will open this. Yeah, so what we will do, I will pick up a source over here. So yeah, so here let's basically select data lake gen 2 CSV file. Here I will select this link service. This link service is pointing to this IG2 links data lake, right? This data lake. So here, suppose I created a container, I created a folder. Inside that folder, I dumped all of this CSV file, for example. And all of these sample files I have given you already. Okay, so like I have shared this particular link with you guys in the past. If not, then I will share it again. So during the class, I will use some of the sample file to practice, which I have given you guys. So here, let's open this. Yeah, so here you will find all the sample files. Okay. So what I am doing right now, here I created a container, input container, and here I created a folder. Inside that, I dumped all the files, right? Now using Data Factory, I'm performing a very simple operation in which I'm copying the file from one location to another location. CSV file, link service, and then input folder, this file, for example. Currently, I'm selecting first row as a header, import schema as none. Generally, we'll select this. I will explain you why we are selecting this. But for now, the agenda is to understand and create a simple pipeline and create two data set. One for the source in which we are mentioning that which data I want to pick up from this link service. Okay. And I want to copy to the same sink. Data lake gen 2, data lake gen 2, CSV file, this, and then I want to dump it to output, for example, and give it as department out.csv, for example, right? Department out dot. First row as a header, import schema as none. Click OK. Now what I am doing here, you can see one pipeline, two data set. Okay, one pipeline, two data set. Generally, we name our pipeline properly so that we can understand what we are doing right now. But like I will also discuss about it going forward, how to rename the pipeline, all of it. But for now, we created a pipeline in which we want to move the data from like our source to sink using these two data set. Okay, delimited text 2, delimited text 3, from source to sink. Now I'm running this pipeline using debug option. Debug is just to test whether our pipeline is functioning proper or not. So here I'm debugging. Done. Now let's go over here. Let's open input. Sorry, let's open output. Department outdoor CSV. This file got copied, right? So here, what we have done, we try to copy the file from one folder to another folder using copy data activity, same source, but the process is exactly same. Okay, so your source is, suppose your source is different. For example, you want to move the data from MS SQL. So in that case, you will create a data set from MS SQL. Sync you can put like as you want. Link service, you need to choose link service. You need to choose which file you want to pick in, and then accordingly you need to do it. Suppose if I am choosing SQL Server, for example, here SQL Server, I will choose the link service. Here I will choose the table name, right? Which table I want to pick. Import schema none for now. And then here in the sink, if you go, you need to define where you want to dump. Simple, right? So source to sink. This is how you need to define it. Now I will open a particular page which might be interesting for you guys. Yeah, data set, pipeline, and activity. Let me copy this, paste it over there. Yeah, so here there are three. Now, when it comes to activity, there are three kinds of activity in general. Okay, so data movement activity, data transformation activity, and control flow activity. Okay, so data movement activity is a copy data activity in which we try to copy the data from one place to another. That is copy data activity. So here you can understand what sort of source and what sort of sink is supported. Okay, suppose if you want to move the data from MySQL. Okay, so if I go over here, if I if I select MySQL over here, it's coming. But if I want to move the data to MySQL, okay, to MySQL, then it's not coming. It will not come. Why? Because it is not possible to do it using data factory as a like connection. So it doesn't have a direct connection. Okay, so in IT worlds, everything is possible by some workaround, but it doesn't have a direct connection that it doesn't have, right? So here you can basically like refer to this document. They are doing the development always. So here you can just see what sort of source and what sort of sink is supported. And then accordingly you can move the data from one point to another. Okay, so everything is like mentioned what are sort of source and what sort of sink is supported. Okay, that you can see. So suppose if I select MySQL source is supported as a source but not supported as a sink. Not tick mark is not there, right? So data movement activity, that is data movement activity. Data transformation activity is any activity in which you try to transform the data, like a stored procedure activity, notebook activity, any data flow activity in which you want to transform the data, combine the data, transform the data, right? That is data transformation activity. What is control flow activity? Any sort of activity in which you basically want to do any sort of logical operation, like you want to do the for each, you want to do if else, you want to execute like any sort of logical operation. It's also important for the interview. So people ask in the interview what is control flow activity sometimes. So very important from the interview perspective as well. What is control flow activity? Because data movement you can understand, yeah, it helps you to move the data. Data transformation you can say, yeah, it helps you transform. Control flow you sometimes not able to remember it. So please remember control flow activity is a for each activity, get metadata activity, if else activity. We'll go through this one by one. But for today's, yeah.
Abhishek, what is the difference between transformation and control flow? Can you come again?
Yeah, so transformation will basically transform your data. So suppose if you want to join the data, or if you want to basically run a stored procedure to do like data type conversion, all sort of thing. So data type conversion, transformation of the data in general. Now suppose if you have copy data activity and now you want to iterate this copy data activity 5 times, then you will use a for each loop, but you're not transforming the data in this overall things, right? So like you are just iterating your pipeline, or you want to look up to some data, you are not transforming the data in general. That is like control flow activity in which you're not transforming the data.
So can we put something like you are restricting your data, or restricting or taking only few records, or pulling some records again and again, something like that is control flow. And if you're changing the data, like say for adding some values to it, or changing the data types, those will be the transformation data.
Yeah,
Like
so
if say
yes.
there is any number, like sum of values, if you're doing something like that, then it will be transformation.
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, you are right that if we are trying to transform the data, then that comes under data transformation. Control flow is basically doing the lookup, referring to some
Just
sort of data that
some
is Yeah,
Got it.
that is control flow activity.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, guys, any other doubt on this?
I have one question regarding this same. It means
Yes.
that from data factory we can just input data only in MS SQL.
Come again. Come again.
For example, I make an action with the Postgres or MySQL, and and then trying to pull data in another database. So in ADF we can input data means target table on target table database only Microsoft SQL.
No. You can put, so suppose here, if I, you can put, like, you can use any sort of database. So here there is like other databases as well, IBM Informatics, MariaDB, Oracle, Postgres, SAP HANA, Teradata, Vertica. So these are the different databases you can use. FTP server, SDFS, SFTP server. It's not like only MySQL is possible. All sort of these databases are possible basically. All of this is possible. It's not like limited to MySQL only. Yeah. Have I answered your question or no?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Any other question, guys? Okay, now I will try to explain like how you can share the subscription. Okay, so here I will go. I will, so suppose I will go to Intra ID. Intra ID is the place through which you can share your subscriptions. I will go to Intra ID, click to users. I probably not have permission to this because this is someone else subscription which I'm using.
Can I share my screen? And
Yeah, you can share your screen. Yes.
think it's been disabled to share my screen.
Yeah. Yeah, please open the portal.
How to hide this?
Yeah, so here we can go to sorry, we will go to, have you purchased two subscription?
No, actually, with my personal account seems like I already used. am getting error stating like
Yeah.
your free trial has already been used something. So I
Yeah.
used my school account.
Yeah. So
So
okay,
somehow I
fine.
got free subscription and also 200.
So in the school account, you won't be able to access or share the subscription. So are you using only school account, your school account?
Yeah, because it's not allowing me other accounts because my credit card or name or
Yeah,
phone
let me
number
share my
somewhere.
screen then. Let me share my screen because in the skill account you cannot do it. So I will share my screen and then I will try to show you the process.
Okay. I think it was just an email, right?
Yeah. So it's just, we need to, like, I will just try to show you if I can. 1 second. So yeah, so I will go to my directory. Which directory? Yeah, so here what you need to go to users. Add a user. So create a new user. So here you can just select add external user, and then basically give the email ID, give the name, and then review and invite. So click over here, review and invite. Give the email, give the email. So suppose if I am inviting myself, Abhishek. Okay, and then I will review and invite, send the invite. Okay, so suppose Siva will add the anybody who has created a subscription wants to invite someone, so they need to come to intra id Microsoft intra id, and then basically go to user. So what we are doing, I am saying I have this tenant, I am adding a particular person in my tenant. Okay, so this is my tenant. Once I make an account, I automatically get a tenant in which I can work. Okay, so this is under my tenant right now. Okay, so I basically invite a user. Once I invite a user, I can go over here. Then this kind of email will come. Okay, so here I will just click. And accept this invitation. Okay, so once I accept this invitation, once someone who invited accept the invitation, you have made him a part of your tenant, but still you haven't given him the subscriptions. Then you need to come to the subscription, whatever subscription you have over here, right? So let me again try to switch. So currently I am in a different tenant right now. I will go to my particular tenant. So here I will manage tenant. Currently I'm going to my students tenant. So this process you don't need to follow. I want to see the subscription. That is why I'm following it. Okay. So here I will go to suppose this tenant now. Once you add him a user, once he accept this particular thing, you need to go to subscription, the subscription which you have. Go to your subscription, comes to IAM, and here add. Here this is enabled, right? This is disabled, but here you can do a add role assignment and then add that person in your subscription. So first process is you invite him as a user. Once he accept it, or you can directly come here and then add a role assignment, and then that person can directly come to Azure, login into Azure account, and then access the subscription. This is how particular person can do it.
To, sorry, one second. After adding the role assignment, the person will log in with their Azure credentials,
Their own
and
credential.
then he will find the subscription,
Yes.
the given subscription along with his subscription, right?
Yes. So suppose
Okay.
you already logged in. For example, you already logged in. Suppose I created it already, right?
Mm.
Now Siva added me as a user. So I need to
Mm.
go to his tenant. So you can come over here and switch the tenant if you are not in your tenant in that case. If you haven't logged in, suppose if I already log in into Azure, I probably am in my own tenant. I need to go to Siva's tenant.
Right.
So that process you need to do. So suppose currently I'm going to here, this is my own tenant which I was accessing but previously. So this is the first organization. Tenant is nothing but organization, and then there are multiple users of that organization, and then that users we are assigning as a subscription. So one user can have multiple subscription, or he can work to a different subscription, right? So tenant, user, and then user assigning a subscription.
Okay. So when we when so for example, you gave me access, and then I got a your subscription also in my drop down. Then if I use that subscription, then will I be able? That means whatever I do will be charged to you.
Yes, because you added me as a user of your subscription. So whatever I will be doing, it will be charged to you. But currently we are using a free subscription, so that, like, suppose if someone wants to share the subscription, then he can. Otherwise, you already can create your own subscription. But suppose what we can do right now, we can create one subscription. So suppose, yeah, so suppose Siva has created, he can share it among others. Next month, someone can else create a subscription. So suppose if we have 4 people, then we
Yeah.
have 4 months of subscription in that case,
Okay.
because every person can create one subscription in that month and everybody can share it. And it is easily possible because here we get 15,000 credit, and
Right.
to practice and to complete the training which we are
To see.
currently targeting, the 1,000 or 2,000 credits enough for that.
Okay. And the second question is, when I use whatever I do can be seen and shared with all the people.
Yes, so you can control that.
Yeah.
So suppose if I have my own like I am the user of this subscription, so you can control like the permissions. So from here you can just control this. If I go to storage account, you can remove, like here if I go to this blob, I can see. If I go to IAM, I will be able to see who can access this storage account. Accordingly,
Yeah.
you can remove and manage that. That is also possible.
Okay. Got it. Because I'm
I
out of free subscription already. I'm using paid
yeah,
one.
so here
Okay.
Jayashree, Sakshi, Aniket can access this particular thing. So a particular person who is the owner of this particular storage account
Okay.
can remove them if they want.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, guys, any other doubt? Okay, if not, then I will write the homework. So first is complete the previous homework that is already homework. So you create the link service for Blob and Data Lake Gen 2. Then second homework is basically install self-hosted integration runtime. And then create link service for MS SQL. If you have installed already or MySQL, try it for MySQL, MS SQL. You need to install MySQL as well. Install community edition of MySQL. Then fourth is move data from blob to blob. Okay. And then blob to data lake. Then fifth is move data from MS SQL to data lake. And then add a user in your tenant. Okay. So all of this you can do as a homework. Okay, I will paste this homework in this chat. Yeah, that's all. I will